Can you guys hear me? No? Bryce, yes, no, maybe? We can? Holy smokes. Shirts and pants. Well, hey, everybody. We're back. We're back. This is what happens when Ryan's left alone in the studio by himself. But shirts and pants. Happy Tuesday. This is how we started off. This is how we get it going. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you celebrated, didn't celebrate too much. And if you did, you probably paid a little bit of a price. But we're back. We got a brand new week for you, a whole lot of guests, and a whole lot to talk about. Trade rumors for all the ones that wanted it. This is your month. And what else do we got? A former Oriole reached 2,000 hits. Jim Duquette's going to talk to us about some trade buzz. And, we got our friend Bryce Whitlow behind the scenes getting ready to rock and roll with us and talk a little bit of Hall of Pretty Good. And maybe we'll throw in something else there for a little surprise. But shirts and pants, I'm sorry to each and every one of you. But thank you for waiting. Hit that like and subscribe button. And don't judge us. This is what happens when Ryan's left alone in the studio. But without further ado, let's bring on the guy that watched all of this debacle unfold. Commissioner of the Hall, pretty good. Bryce Whitlow. Bryce.
How's it going?
You know, it's been better. And now, goodness gracious, I got to fix the camera. Hold on. But Bryce, talk to the people real quickly about I'm just going to move over. Let's just do that.
That works.
Look at that. Whammy. Bryce, talk to me. Another amazing week. And also for you, you've been doing a lot of great things, but where do you want to start with this? Where do we start?
I mean, first, I'd love to talk about D. Strange Gordon getting into the Hall of Pretty Good, obviously. I thought that was pretty cool to see. He was a personal favorite of mine. And also, I thought it was big because he is a PED user. He got suspended for that at least. And so it was good to see where everyone stands on that issue, I'd say.
Yeah, I saw you mention you're talking about, letting the people vote for that because it is a controversial thing in the actual Hall of Fame and throughout baseball and throughout how everyone view a player. But whammy, man. D's in, but he's not retired officially yet, though, to clarify.
No, that was pretty cool for me. I felt like I was almost breaking some news to a certain degree. He reached out to me and was like, yo, bro, I'm not retired yet, were his exact words. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, man. Can we keep the vote anyway? And he was just like, yeah, I love it. It's totally fine to keep going. Just want to let you know. So, maybe the Orioles could sneak in a minor league deal or something, run him at second base when Holiday's tired or something like that.
Yeah, you wonder. I'll say probably in Baltimore they'd want a few other options, a couple healthy catchers, maybe some more pitching depth, but you never know. If they get back into it, maybe D can latch on with the team. But how about on the other side? There was another player that we were making the case for last week, Mr. Darren O'Day, and not only did he get the votes to get into the Hall pretty good, Bryce, I mean, he shattered the threshold and made it into the inner circle of the Hall pretty good.
Yeah, he got above the 90%. I was pleasantly surprised. It was really cool to see relievers get love. I feel like they don't get a lot of love in these types of circles when you're voting for things like that. So I thought it was really important that everybody took a stand and was like, yes, we value relievers, because I personally do value relievers as well. So I thought it was really cool to see him get a lot of love. Super memorable player. And I think he's very well liked, and I really think that showed in the vote.
Oh, no doubt about it. And that was the only thing I was worried about is, are people really going to understand how great he's been, throughout his career? Now, people in Baltimore remember him and that he was dynamite and lights out. Braves fans remember him as well. But mainly it was that stay in Baltimore. So how much did people follow the stretch run for Darren O'Day? I mean, it seems like a lot of people did. And it's not being biased when you say like he was one of the most recognizable names that wasn't a closer. Because you know what, Bryce? Closers get all the glory, and all the faults. Middle relief or even back end guys still don't get the recognition. So like Kelvin Herrera, great example, back end guy, had some really solid years, but he was never the closer. He was never the guy. He was more of the seventh inning guy. If you catch my drift.
Yeah, I was a little bit sad to see what happened with Herrera with the vote, but I mean, I get it. But he was part of that iconic Royals bullpen, so I kind of thought that would carry him over. But it was good to see everybody kind of course correct and then let in a reliever almost immediately after that, in my opinion. And I know I sound biased, but I feel like every guy I put up for a vote, I could make a case for. Like, I love all these players. So I could come on here and argue for anybody, honestly. So that's just how I feel about it. But it was cool to see a reliever get some love.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it, man. I mean, look, the Hall pretty good, keeps getting recognition. I saw Papelbon. He joined the cause. Baseball Reference, you're an ambassador now for Baseball Reference.
That was so cool. It's pretty much I hadn't even heard of it until they reached out, but it's kind of just a thing where they like acknowledge that I guess you're good with the brand and the post you're making, help them get recognition. And so it was cool, super cool to see them reach out. I used to get, in trouble in school for looking up, random baseball stats on Baseball Reference. And so it was really cool of them to reach out and say like, hey, we really like what you're doing. So it was a really awesome moment for me.
Yeah, I'm sure. And also with Papelbon, because I know like we're talking about Salem Red Sox. Pap been on the show here before last year. It's cool that there's so many different people getting recognition, and also some that are recognizing because there's an obligation as well. I saw the cameo with Haas. So I'm just assuming you said, hey, here's the little cameo. And he did. Hey, it was great. It was phenomenal to see. That'll pop up.
I did not pay for that, actually. One of my followers paid for it without me knowing and then sent it to me. It was like, here it is. It was really cool of them to do that. His name is Cade Lott. Shout out to him. It was super cool of him to pay for that and then send it to me. Hosmer, I mean, they had to pay him $50, I think, but he really took his time with it. I'll give him that.
Yeah, he did. And he made it special and he made it one of a kind in this process. And, the cool thing, Bryce, is, maybe because, again, I grew up outside of the realm of like understanding normalcy with the baseball world, right? Because I had a father that played all these games. He didn't really understand the legacy that he put out there. And then he got immortalized for it, right? Which is great. Okay, you played games, he had 3,000 hits, 400 home runs. Like, I get it, dude. Like, you won a couple MVPs. You're on Backyard Baseball 2001, which is really the highlight of his career. But there's so many damn good players. And when you get older and you're in the game and you realize that some of those names, I don't want to say they get forgotten, but you realize how good they have to be to get to the bigs, and even better to stay around for a while. Well, Bryce, I think in this case, and if our guest behind the scenes, if he's ready, just give me a thumbs up. Perfect. Well, Bryce, I thought it'd be really fitting if, since you just had him voted into the Hall Pretty Good, we'd bring on now a member of the Hall Pretty Good Inner Circle and former Baltimore Oriole, Darren O'Day. Darren.
Hey, guys.
So, Darren, I appreciate you taking time, and I'll make the introductions here. So, Bryce is the commissioner of the MLB Hall Pretty Good, and Darren O'Day is Darren O'Day, played forever, and one of the best relievers during the time. So, Darren, meet Bryce. Bryce, meet Darren.
Hey, Bryce. What's up, bud?
I'm speechless. I had no idea. It's a pleasure to talk to you, man. I loved you for so long, especially on the Orioles. Like, this is an amazing moment for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So do I need to call you? Are you the commissioner of the Hall Pretty Good, or what's your formal title?
I do occasionally like to go by the commissioner, yes.
All right. There you go. The commish.
So I'm glad we can make the connection. And Darren, I wanted to get a chance to talk to you anyway, just because I like to go back and talk about the game. But I thought it was a really good fitting moment because maybe it was obviously, I think he just got the call. Darren, can you still hear us? Did we lose you? Hey, Darren, if you can I'll text you. And leave the chat and come back. Let me see. Try it again. I'll text you.
All right, we're back.
Oh, you're back. Great.
Yeah, I got a phone call. I'm sorry, guys.
You're good. You're good. So what I was about to say was, you know, you were one of the most recognizable bullpen guys, and you know it. You didn't get the glory, so to speak, because you were doing the dirty work in the 7th, 8th, and occasionally had some saves. But also the mustache, dude, became signature. When did that become a part of the whole aesthetic and the persona that is Darren O'Day?
The mustache, it created a lot of a buzz in Baltimore. It was Chris Davis and I were good buddies when I was playing there, and we made a pact that we would grow mustaches for picture day in spring training. And when you make a choice every spring training, you do picture day, because then the rest of that season you're going to have a mustache on the jumbotron if you decide to do that. So I get to book picture day, and he had shaved his, and I'm stuck with this goofy mustache, and I wore it, and I wore it proud. Now the update is I still do some broadcasting for the Braves radio network, and we're doing a game at the Bristol Motor Speedway, and I'm going in character as a NASCAR driver. And so that's happening in like 2 weeks. So I started growing the crumb duster again in preparation for that. So I look proper when I go.
That's 11 out of 10. I can't, Darren. I tried to grow a beard and facial hair.
Yeah.
My fiance hates it, but like when I was hitting well in the minors, I can't shave the beard because that's I'd be killing myself doing that. It's ruining my career. Are you a superstitious guy at all by chance?
A little bit. I'm not crazy like some guys I played with, but if the mustache is playing and I'm pitching good, then I'm going to keep it. 1 year I shaved my head on a whim, and I started pitching the best I'd ever pitched, and then I just continued to shave it because I was pitching too good to go with anything else. So, yeah, there is some superstition in my game for sure.
Well, hey, Bryce, since you got the moment now, is there anything you want to ask the newest member of your inner circle, who now joins, I believe it's Shane Victorino and Hideki Matsui, right? Or the other two that are in the can't hear me now? Am I gone? Darren, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can? So, Bryce, it's you. It's you, Bryce. While he fixes that real quick, Darren, because I know that just made his time. So I appreciate that. He started it. He won't say it, but he started it just for people to remember how many great players there were.
Yeah.
And yeah, dude, you pitched for a long time. Do you ever look back at that and maybe like in Baltimore where you really hit the rhythm? People still mimic your movements and talk about you in this area. I know you're with the Braves, but Baltimore still has a ton of love for you here.
Yeah, but I mean, I love the city too. Those were the best, most enjoyable years of my career were there in Baltimore. And, I think people really connected to me, because I was better more often than I was, and I got a lot of big outs. And then, Showalter put me in a lot of good situations for that. But and the other thing that I never realized until somebody told me at a local grocery store there was even the casual fans in Baltimore could tell when I was pitching because of the goofy motion. Like immediately, if you had watched 1 or 2 games where I pitched, you're like, oh, I remember that guy, because it's so different. And we were part of that period where we brought a good team back to baseball, Baltimore. It was such a proud baseball history, and they'd been down for so long. And we came along in 2012 and just and started in 11 and continued in 12 and started beating up on the the big dogs of the AL East in Boston and New York. So it was a fun time to be there and a fun time to play. And I treasure those years certainly.
Yeah, I mean, you were pretty lights out, and the trio, you, Brad Brock, Zach Britton, just nails, dude. It was shut down.
Yeah.
And I guess in the moment you don't realize how special that is until you move on, and then also you realize well, damn, we don't have those guys still all involved with the team. And
Yeah.
that's throughout all of baseball, right?
Right.
And that's why I said the glory doesn't really happen with relievers, where the closer, if they do well, they get all the credit in the world. When they fail, a lot's on them. For you, it was, if you didn't do your job, you were going to be criticized. If you did your job, well, you were supposed to do that. You were supposed to come in and get that 7th inning hold or 8th inning hold and keep the game where it is. I think we have Bryce back now. Bryce, you back?
Yep.
Okay, so Bryce, I thought this was a good time. Do you have any questions for a member of your inner circle?
Yeah, one question I always wanted to ask a reliever is, how do you deal with, coming back the next night to pitch? Let's say your outing the previous game didn't go too well.
Yeah.
Like, how did you mentally scrub that from your mind in order to have a good outing the next night? Because you're not throwing every 5th day. You're sometimes throwing 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that, to me, in my opinion, is the great separator to major leagues, is the mental side of the game. There's a lot of guys in AAA or guys that get cups of coffee in the major leagues that are very talented and have great stuff, physically gifted, but they don't have it between the ears. And for me, I think I had a long history of failure in my career and just not being the best guy. So I had learned to struggle. A lot of these first rounders, they zoom through the minor leagues, they get to the major leagues. Oh, you got to learn how to struggle? Like how are you going to do that on the biggest stage in baseball for the first time in your life? So for me, I was lucky. I had a lot of preparation in that in high school and college to know that, once I figured out I was good enough to be there, that helped me get through and rely on my success that I had before, and some good coaches, some really good pitching coaches that helped me out and taught me some mental skills about just letting it go. And at other times just saying, forget it. I don't know what the swearing rules are on here, but
you can say shit, you can say fuck, you can say whatever you want.
Okay,
it's
great. Yeah, sometimes you just got to say fuck it and go for it, and that's sometimes that's the key to it in baseball, is saying forget all the other stuff. All the other stuff I can't control. All I can control is where I put this pitch, where my mind is, what all I'm thinking about right now, and blocking all that out. So, that's a big part of it, because if you absolutely tank an appearance as a middle guy, a setup guy, your food doesn't taste as good, your wife's not as pretty, you're going to kick your dog when you walk in the door instead of petting it. So you really need to get back out there and get the satisfaction of doing your job. At least that's the way I was.
It's a game where it's already so hard. Even pitching, even though, Darren, pitchers, you guys got, all of it technically in your favor. Having said that, though, if you shatter a bat into a million pieces and that bloops in there and you're sitting there going, are you kidding me? Are you shitting me that ball drops in? Yeah. And then something strange happens and you give up a 2 or 3 spot. And then you got to sit with it. The beauty of a reliever, right, is you get to go back out there and do it again. But the negative part of it is you got to be able to wear the brunt of it every single day, and you're not going to be as fresh. One thing you talked about failure and about the grind. I always like Darren to bring more perspective to it. And I got a chance to live in the minors, grew up with it, obviously, with the Ripken family. But what for you on the mental side? Because when it started to click, you were 25 when you got to the bigs.
Yeah.
But for those that don't understand what that means, because don't take this the wrong way, I thought that you figured out how to maximize your talent, but were you the most talented pitcher in the big leagues?
No.
Probably. You and Paul Skeens right now at their heyday, like maybe the same, right? You and Felix Bautista in Baltimore, same pitcher, right? But you see where I'm going with this. Yeah. You learned how to maximize you, but you had to figure that out on the mental side. Where did that click?
So, again, I had a lot of good coaching in college, and I pitched for 4 years in the SEC against guys swinging a -5 metal bat, 3-4-5, and these are future big leaguers swinging a -5 metal bat. So I learned how to pitch, and I learned how to fail and how to pitch on back-to-back days and move on. And so when I got to the minor leagues, I zoomed through the minor leagues because I only spent a year and a half in, shooting through there. Because as you mentioned, I was 25 when I made it. And those mental skills, like you were talking about, you get a routine double play ball and your shortstop kicks it. Well, early in my career, I probably wasn't as equipped, and I would let it affect me and think, well, that was my way out, or I would blame that guy. And as my career progressed and I learned what was beneficial, I figured out that's nothing I can control. Because sometimes I'm going to throw a pitch down the middle, a terrible backup slider, and Vladdy Guerrero is going to pop it up. So sometimes you're the beneficiary of good luck too. So you got to go with the bad luck. So now when I see a young reliever in the major leagues, I like to watch how he responds to an error by his fielder or a broken bat hit, as you mentioned, or just a silly play. And I like to see if he gets back in the strike zone or if he tries too hard. I love that mental side of baseball. And that's part of the reason I'm still involved in the game is I love watching how these young players respond to adversity and what kind of skills they use to get past that sort of stuff.
Yeah, baseball is such a chess game, right?
Yeah.
You have to continue to watch, understand, and when something doesn't go your way, you also can't panic.
Right.
And that's the other side. And the ones that are very intuitive can tend to stay around for a while. You stayed around for a while, funky delivery and all, but at the end of the day, you got guys out, period. Yeah. That's your job. We got 2 questions and we'll let you go, Darren. Bryce has one more, and then I want to finish up with something a little bit more fun. So, Bryce, what you got?
Yeah, so obviously after Baltimore, which I argue you're most known for your time there, you went and played for the Yankees. And so I always wanted to ask somebody who played for them, did you find the media treated you more harshly there? And as somebody who kind of works on that other side of baseball now with the Braves, do you kind of have more sympathy for media members or for players and how media treats players these days compared to back then when you were playing?
Yeah. Yes and yes. So when I went to New York, you spent a lot of time in spring training with media training. They do quite a bit of time. I would say more time than you do on bunt defenses or stuff like that. They teach you about what's coming and how to handle it and what these journalists are trying to do. And, for a long time in my career, certain times in my career, when you're playing well, you're buddy with all journalists. And when you're struggling or you're hurt, you don't understand that they have a job to do as well. And so sometimes you would avoid them or try not to talk to them or blow them off, whatever. And then, yes, as I don't consider myself part of the media. I'm just a color guy. I talk about what makes the plays exceptional, or I add context to the game. But I have befriended a lot of members of the media. We travel together and talking to them about, it's like, man, I'm trying to get Chris Sale to talk about this. And Chris Sale is the best dude in the world. He just doesn't like talking to the media. And I know the media guy's a great person. He's trying to do a job. He's trying to get Chris to talk about something Chris really doesn't have time for. So yeah, I can sympathize with both sides of it. So yeah, New York's a different beast, but that's what their readers demand and their viewers, their listeners demand in that market. So, as a player, you got to be ready for it. And to be honest, early in my career, I would have struggled with that. Later in my career, I was more prepared for it.
Yeah, especially nowadays, right? Media is bigger than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And I understand guys being close to the vest when you're in the situation and everyone's judging your emotions, your decisions. Are you caring enough? Are you doing the right thing? What answer was that? Darren, I interviewed Eddie Murray about a couple months ago. I've known Big Ed for my whole life, right?
He's the man.
Ed hated the media.
Yep.
And even for me sitting down with me, he's looking at it like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I'm like, hey, Ed, dude, we're just going to talk. But it's because in the moment, he didn't want it to take away from his job and responsibility. And it wasn't something he was comfortable with. And it's just the day and world that we live in. But it does give more insight when players do describe themselves a little bit more. Charlie Morton, I think, is one of those guys who does it maybe even too much where if I'm like, hey, you really want to hear what Charlie's going on? You're laughing at that because
Yeah, I do know.
Experience in that because he was just down there. So you don't see a lot of people like Charlie do that, but that's a part of how baseball is.
Yeah, he's really introspective and reflective. Yeah. Hey, before you hit me with your question, Bryce, I got to tell you a story. So I don't remember exactly which day I got voted in. I was on vacation over the 4th of July. And so I live in Atlanta now. We flew up to Michigan to go to my brother-in-law's lake house, little tiny town, middle of nowhere, Michigan. And he has this friend that lives across the lake. He says, hey, we're having a concert at our house. You guys should come over July 5th. So we take the boat across the lake. We get in the dock. This kid jumps off land to come help us dock up our boat, right? And he's not really paying attention. He just got off his phone. He's kind of bored. And then he ties up our boat, and I walk into the party, and about 30 seconds later, this kid comes running back, and he's like, hey, you're Darren O'Day. You just got elected to the Hall pretty good. And I'm like, how did this kid know? Like, he found out from somebody else, and he's such a big fan of, obscure baseball and what you're doing with your account, that he was so excited. I took a picture with him. He was trying to get me to do an acceptance speech. The problem with that is I'd been drinking for like 8 hours at that point. And so the acceptance speech might not have been as good as Hosmer's, but it was so cool. And he knows all the stats. He knows, all the guys, all the WAR. It was just a cool experience for this kid who I'd never met before. And we talked about baseball for 20 minutes.
Believe it or not, he actually reached out to me and sent me the picture of you two together.
Oh, he did?
And told me about it. Yeah. He's going to freak out when I message him and be like, guess what I just heard?
Yeah.
But that's so cool. And before you go, I seriously just want to thank you for agreeing to do this. This is a huge honor to get to talk to you. I was such a big fan. Oh,
well, man, I did it. Your foresight to create this is pretty cool. I did it a different way. I always appreciated guys that found their own way. And, I did it different than other guys. And your website, your Hall of Pretty Good is a different concept I'd never really thought of. And, you're thinking of all of us guys that can't even get in the grounds at Cooperstown, but, we still get recognized. I've always strived to be pretty good.
Yeah.
You definitely were.
Well, now to close it out then, Darren, I mean, two things, because I just saw it, but are you going into the Hall pretty good as an O, or like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
People ask me that all the time because I went to 2 World Series with the Rangers. I was only there I had 2 really good years there. I was hurt the third. But yeah, all the formative years of my career and the years I'm most proud of were as an O. And so there's no question if I'm going into any kind of hall, except maybe the mess hall, I'm going in as an Oriole.
Hell yeah, man. Well, Darren, last fun thing, and maybe you don't have to have it. We expect maybe down the road you can, if you ever want to do a formal speech for the Hall, pretty good. I think Bryce would always take it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You're thinking about it, drinking or no drinking, your choice, your call. I got my bottles in here already. I got my tequila, bourbon, and vodka. But one thing you talk about getting it together. Do you have any minor league story? I always ask people this. Do you have any minor league story that jumps off the page to you?
Yeah, we have. I mean, I have some good ones. We had a bus driver in AA that spent some time on the disciplinary list for testing positive for cocaine and methamphetamine. He was the team bus driver, right? And he comes back from his suspension. And gosh, we were in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we persuaded Bussy, is what we called him. That's what you did in the old days. I had no idea what his real name. And Bussy had been struggling a little bit since he'd been subjected to drug tests, and I don't know if his head was in the right place, but we persuaded him to drive us to a sports bar. There was like 12 of us to go watch football. And so we load into the team bus. It's a sleeper bus. It's got these air conditioning units on the top of the bus. And Bussy's driving us to go watch football and apparently wasn't paying attention to a low-hanging bridge and hammered the bridge at speed with the air conditioning units and peeled the top of the team bus open like a tuna can. I mean, we looked up and you could see the sky. It was like, oh, Bussy. Bussy's already on thin ice, man. This isn't going to be good. Yeah.
Why is it always the bus trips or something on a bus?
Well,
right?
It's because all the wild stuff. I mean, I had some fun times in the major leagues, but all the true deviants in the minor leagues, the guys who are good at football but are flawed baseball, good at baseball but have flawed personalities, usually get weeded out before they get to the major leagues. So if you're around guys like that all day, every day, and they can survive in the minor leagues, man, there's just going to be hilarity that ensues. And also, like, you get yourself, nobody's got social media taking pictures of you or anything. So there's a lot more anonymity in the minor leagues, more latitude to get into trouble.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was in the minors then from 21 to 2014 before.
Yeah.
I got my fair share of moments that I've shared quite a few of those as well, but I can't say of my bus trips. I've had a shattered windshield driving through rain with Tim Raines Jr. trying to hold the damn glass in place. We had to quadruple up because they didn't have enough rooms for the players. And, a few other things. Never have I had a bus lose the top on a road trip. So mark that down, Darren. Goodness gracious.
It's always bus. That time when the bus flew open, middle of the night, Montana, middle of nowhere, and everybody's sleeping because it's 4 a.m. and there's not a single street light to be seen. And somebody, I don't know why, wakes up and is like, "Hey, one of the luggage things opened up, and the luggage is just flying out." So we had to get out. We stopped, and everybody's waking up like, "What's going on?" They have no idea how far the thing's been open. And there's just luggage strewn across the Black Hills. And it's such a creepy beginning of a horror movie out there, The Children of the Corn. It's like that. It's always bus stuff. You're right, Ryan.
Yeah, it always is. Now, there are some other stories, but we'll leave it at bus for right now.
Yeah,
and maybe, Darren, in the future, I could talk baseball with you all the time, but, today was more of a day of congratulating you on the haul. Pretty good. And Bryce, I'm glad. Thank you for creating this. Darren, thank you for your time. Bryce, any final words before we let your inner circle member go?
I'm honestly speechless. Just thank you to both of you for doing this. This totally made my life. Like, I'm not even kidding. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Darren, where can people find you and tune in if they're looking for you?
I have a Twitter account. I'll answer it maybe once a month. I'm just not an active social media guy. But I do radio for the Braves, 680 The Fan. There's an app for that if they want to listen to me talk about nonsense for about 2.5 hours a day. We have a good time, and you're going to learn about baseball. You have to have a good time when your team's playing like the Braves are right now. So we go out of our way to make it worth a listen anyways.
Well, hey, tell the Braves thanks for giving a little bit of hope back to Baltimore. Because before that, everyone has had a few negative thoughts about where the team is. So we'll see. But Darren, appreciate you, man. Thank you. And I'll look forward to talking to you soon. All right.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Bryce. See you guys.
Thank you.
Darren O'Day, everybody. Well, if you're new to the channel, everyone, hit that like and subscribe button. Ryan Ripken Show. We do this live every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday right here on YouTube, X, and Facebook. That is Darren O'Day, former Angel, Ranger, Brave, but more importantly, he was a Baltimore Oriole, and he was just elected into the commissioner here, Bryce Whitlow's Hall. Pretty good. Bryce, I'm glad we could make that work. I think it's really cool, and you're hearing that someone that you watched, how cool of a moment still of people reaching out to him. So congratulations for everything you've built, and I think we got a lot more in store that we can keep talking about, all right?
Definitely. And thank you for having me on again. I really appreciate it. This was amazing. Seriously.
Yeah, and I'm glad I got my damn thing figured out because I was like, shit. Well, I'm just gonna ruin this entire surprise, but we got it done. So, all right, Bryce. Who's on the docket, or who is it? Or we'll wait. Maybe we'll talk later in the week. Who's on Thursday?
Yeah, that works for me. If it works for you.
Perfect. We'll have you back on. I think we have to have a Hall Pretty Good segment. I think that's become a thing here, Bryce.
I'm down whenever. This works great for my schedule, and thank you again for having me on.
Hell yeah, man. All right, be good. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and I'll talk to you later on, all right?
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Bryce Whitlow, everybody. The commissioner of the Hall Pretty Good. And look, if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Ryan Ripken Show just sat down with Darren O'Day and Bryce Whitlow. Thought that was really cool to be able to talk about all of that. And Darren O'Day is one of those guys, right, that the image with the mustache, the delivery is what people at least can stick out, the initial part, right? Because you can remember somebody. But the reason why the legend of Darren O'Day grew throughout his big league career is because he was pretty damn good, especially as a Baltimore Oriole. He knew how to get guys out. And that's the name of it at the end of the day. No matter how hard you throw, what angle you do, if you get guys out, they're going to give you some opportunities. And Darren O'Day definitely was one of the best during his time in his prime in the big leagues. And we are going to have our next guest join us in a little bit here. Jim Duquette, former GM, going to talk some shop, talk some trade buzz. But I also want to remind you guys that this episode is brought to you by my friends over at meritclubs.com. Merit Clubs right behind. They're great. The gym is back open in Canton. It's supposed to go there on Thursday to do a live show from the rooftop. And it's going to be a blast. But they've been a tremendous sponsor. And if you are interested in free consultations or a day pass, I'll put the day pass down below again real quick. If you guys are interested, it's all right there as far as RIP 25. And they are offering free consultations. If you're going to a ballpark, you're trying to get in a rhythm for working out, talk to our friends at Merit Clubs, man. They are great. They help in so many different ways, but shout out to them. They've helped us continue to grow. And you know who has also helped us continue to grow is each and every one of you out there, members of the Ryan Ripken Show. The subscribers, we appreciate you, but our channel members, really appreciate you guys being a Rip Good Kid or a Holy Shirts and Pants member. I wrote out to the Holy Shirts and Pants members that we're going to do like at least once a week, a little Rip After Dark, or just hang out, chill session. Because I want to hear what's going on with you all, but also, you know, we can let loose a little bit more. I mean, hell, I could let loose on this show, but I try to keep it. Yeah, I don't keep it that tame. Who the hell am I kidding here? But if you want to be a channel member, click that join button next to subscribe. Means the world. And when I move, you move, as Ludacris would say, just like that. We are live on Facebook and YouTube and X, and I see you, Will George. I appreciate you. Might have to have you on for some stories in the future. But a guy that I know has a lot of stories, guy that I know has a lot of experience. I don't know if anything would surprise him anymore, but I could ask him that. And then, Jim, if you're ready to rock and roll, you let me know. Just give me a little thumbs up. Boom. You've seen him busy all over the place. And he's a recurring member of the Ryan Ripken Show. Let's bring on my friend, your friend, Mr. Jim Duquette. Jim, how you doing?
You're quoting Ludacris before I come in. That's quite the introduction, Ryan.
Well,
Quite the intro. I mean,
Jim,
it doesn't get any better than that.
That's what I mean, like, you know, persona, Jim Duquette, Ludacris. There's a lot of similarities there. Stylish being one of them.
Yes.
But Jim, I haven't seen you in a little bit, probably since actually last time I saw you in person was like the winter meetings, I think, back in December.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
How you been?
Are you going to the All-Star game by chance? Will I see you there?
Yeah, I was supposed to go. I think this one I gotta bow out because I got a couple of obligations. I'm assuming you're making your way down to Atlanta.
I will be there. I'm going down on Saturday. I'm going to be part of the draft. the Derby. We have a pregame show before the Derby and a pregame show before the game. So yeah, I'll be there for all of them, and I look forward to it. So I think it's number 12 or 13 in this role for that going down to each of these events, which I love to do. So yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big week. I keep forgetting that the draft is the same time now, right? Being pushed back. And, we had Keith Law on last week and talked about, prospects and trades and draft. Yep. And, we made the connection because the Holiday family could make history. Yep. If Ethan were to go number one. But Jim, and maybe just because I got connections, obviously, with the Nationals then too. That's where I started my career. Yep. Nothing shocks me anymore in baseball, right? Like nothing shocks me. But I got to say, I was a little surprised with the timing of Rizzo and Dave Martinez. I know contracts and picking up options was something being talked about. But to you, were you a little surprised of the timing? Because we are less than a week until the MLB draft here, and the Nats have the number 1 overall pick.
I think, to your point, a lot of the sport, including myself, was surprised on the timing. Maybe not with Dave Martinez, because we saw it here locally with Brandon Hyde, but we saw it with Derek Shelton in Pittsburgh, Bud Black in Colorado. So managers are always on kind of thin ice. But here, everyone knew that the Nats were on a rebuild. Was it going like they had hoped this year? No, absolutely not. But you're still feeling like, geez, all right, ownership. You would think we all bought into that plan for another year. They didn't let him didn't let Mike Rizzo spend any money in free agency really all that much. So, and then as you said, like when you're getting close to the draft, the sweet spot for Mike Rizzo is his evaluation of amateur players. Like he was out seeing the top amateur players that they were going to consider for the number 1 overall pick. And so, I'm sure they got his list in. He's given his opinion and what have you. But that just seems odd to me. And it kind of, so I don't want to sit there and be too negative towards ownership, but it clearly showed that they didn't know and recognize the importance of the position, especially at this time of the year, leading into the trade deadline too.
Yeah, I mean, that's a double whammy, right? And I know that they still have people in place, right? And I know for the Nationals, I mean, look, we know this, Jim. When you losing causes problems. Losing leads to decisions. Right. And, it costs people jobs. I mean, heck, come to Baltimore, Brandon Hyde lost his job. Was Brandon Hyde the sole reason for why the Orioles were struggling? No, but a manager or somebody usually is one of the fall guys to start. And then it can be a domino effect. And for the Nationals, they, I got to check the standings, but as of when the firing happened, they were the second worst team in the National League, right? So I understand the disappointment, but to what you were saying, they weren't spending on certain places and cases, and they did have some deficiencies with their staffs, both in the starting rotation and the bullpen. One thing that Mike Rizzo, whoever comes in next, has an absolute superstar in James Wood, Mackenzie Gore, all-star, CJ Abrams, all-star, and some other people in that deal that are going to make an impact for this team. So it's a really desirable spot. Well, I'll ask you real quickly to close that part out. Do you think then, is Ethan Holiday a guy that the Nats should seriously consider with that first pick, or do you think that they go more arm because that is a need that they want to have?
So it's always a difficult decision when it's not clear. Like Strasburg and Harper, those were obvious picks back in the day when Mike chose those two guys and they had the number 1 overall pick, right? So this one is not as clear. I think it's clear. I think Ethan Holiday is the best player in the draft, but it's close. Like if you want a top quick to the big leagues college pitcher, like a Cade Anderson or Jamie Arnold, I could see you going in that route. I think what's interesting in that is if you take the GM out of the equation, he might have a feeling like, hey, listen, I need to win next year in 2026. So I want the college pitcher that's quick to the big leagues, even though Ethan Holiday will get to the big leagues fast. It may take him an extra year or two to get to the big leagues over the college pitcher, let's say. So he might influence it a little bit if he was there. They took him right out of the equation. So now it's up to Danny Haas to make that call. The best decision for the long term for the Nationals, I think, is Ethan Holiday. I think it's clear. They need to fix some of their internal hitting development coaching that has been going on, and they've had some problems with, which I'm sure you're aware of too. But primarily, I think the best player is Holiday. And so if they choose differently, it may be because of that influence that they have, that they want to start winning, next year, and so they're going to pick a guy that's closer to the big leagues.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's always a dilemma, right? But if you're looking at the makeup, it surely does help that Matt Holliday turned out pretty damn good for his career. Jackson, the makeup of him and moving forward. And last time I had you on here, we were looking at the trade deadline the year before and saying, if you believe in the kid, which you should, you hold on to him because he's so young. And here he was, had a chance to be an all-star in his first full season because he was called up and down last year. That's the nature of the beast. So be curious, but I think Jim, that Ethan and Jackson would become the first set of brothers in baseball to go number 1 overall. In sports, I know in the NFL it was Peyton and Eli Manning. So
Right.
we could be watching history, and then the Holiday family might just begin some real estate in the Maryland region if that's the case, right? So we'll have to wait and see. I saw some articles pop up here, Jim, and before I ask you about like some of your thoughts around the deadline and all of that, I know we talked last year about Framber Valdez was a story. I saw another article out about with teams, is there anything else that sticks out to you that of deals that almost fall through or frustrations or the time? Like, give people a little bit of an understanding of what really happens at this deadline and how you might think the team's not doing anything because nothing happened, but you and I both know that's not the case.
Right.
And there's a lot of other factors that go into a decision being finalized.
I told this story recently, Ryan, and I've had variations of it, but I'll tell it to you. If you go way back when I was in the front office with the Orioles, when I was with Mike Flanagan, we had Miggy Tejada. Miguel was one of the best shortstops in the game. He was under a really good contract, but we were struggling during those years, and we had an initial conversation with ownership about trading him, and this was in going into the 06 trade deadline. And we and so we got the okay to explore what it would take to trade him. And it was not going to be easy, but again, we were looking ahead, and that was part of the job that I thought I was coming down here for, was to look ahead for to build a longer term idea of the roster. So we shopped Miggy, and we narrowed. We had a lot of interest at that point. There was 3 teams that were really interested. It was the Mets, it was the Astros, and it was the Angels. And the team that offered the best package was the Angels. They really liked him. Their owner wanted him badly. They had a number of coaches that loved him. We had a really good scout that had scouted the Angels very well. And we had it down to, if you remember, Irving Santana or Bartolo Colon. We had our choice of one of those 2 guys. Eric Ibar was a really good shortstop, leadoff type of hitter, top of the lineup hitter. He was young. They were both controllable guys for like 6 years, and we could have gotten a prospect back as well for Miggy. That was the best package, and we had other packages too that would have been really good, organization changing. And I went over. I was organizing everything. I had a whiteboard. We walked over to the law offices there. And sat down with Peter Angelos, who was the one obviously we were reporting to, and we explained each team. We went through 5 teams, all of the list of names. We went through, like, it took us about 30 minutes, a 30-minute presentation. And at the end, all we he's, Peter sat there, and this is what happens. Ownership has their reasons. He just looked at us, kind of put his hand up on his chin, and he said, "No, I don't want to do it." And that was it. It was silence. And I was looking for a reason, and so was Flanny. We were like, okay, there's got to be nothing. He just didn't want to do it. Later, he told me, he was concerned about who was going to replace him offensively. Like, it's like, listen, we weren't concerned about that. We were concerned about, the following couple of years, and that would have changed. We would have had a premium shortstop who ended up being an all-star and a top of the rotation starter to help in that rebuild. But that's what happens with owners sometimes is they don't want to make those, that you really need to get those answers ahead of time, which I thought we did, but we needed constant communication and conversation in that part. And that's one of those you go back and go, wow, there was a missed opportunity for us.
Yeah, especially that year in 2006 that you're referring to. Miguel Tejada hit 330, had 100 RBIs, 24 home runs. In 2 previous years, in 2004, he had 150 RBIs and 34 home runs. So it's safe to say you were trading a player that was in their prime or getting towards the end of their prime, but still, playing at the top of his game. And you were that close. It would have happened. But someone said, nope, I'm not going to do that. And this isn't to point anything out with when I explained to everyone out here, Jim, and just like you are, this isn't the only time this has ever happened in Major League Baseball history, right? This happens all the time around not just baseball, but sports, and in this case, though, you would have wondered, though, Jim, what could have been for a time in Baltimore to kind of bolster that. But I digress.
The year after it came out, he was in the Mitchell report for PEDs. So any real value that we had after that went out in the PED report, unfortunately. So, and Miggy was, he was a prince of a guy. He was one of my favorite players. Like he was a superstar that didn't come with a lot of like, he didn't have guys, back then they had posses where it'd be a dozen guys coming into the clubhouse. Like, he didn't have that with him at all. He was a really simple guy. But yeah, but to your point, ownership has those and makes those final calls pretty much all the time. And there are a lot of deals that fall through for the oddest reasons. Sometimes it's medical reasons. Sometimes it's the owner decides no. An injury to a prospect that you're like, wow, couldn't we just swap out another prospect? It happens. And that's why these deals are so complicated.
Super complicated. And also, Miguel Tejada had 5 straight years of playing 6 straight years of playing 162 games. The 2 prior years to that streak, 160 and 159. So you're having a guy that was durable and effective, and what could have been, Jim, what could have been, but we've heard a lot of what could have, should have, and all of that. Let's talk about this deadline then. Okay. Yeah. I don't really know what to always make of it because teams think that they're in because there's that final wild card spot. Now there are certain teams like, Baltimore is probably in that weird spot. And even Atlanta now has fallen back where you have talent on both these teams where you should contend next year, right? Like Atlanta, Baltimore, and Baltimore still is within this running too. Like, you're not going to say the season's over. I mean, hell, the Tigers technically sold last year,
right?
And they got hot, snuck in, and won a playoff series. But you do have to look ahead. Is there any team, we'll start with a team that you think is going to be looking to cash in on teams that are really looking to make an aggressive push?
So I think it is right now a seller's market. So if you have a team, you have players that you're willing to trade, you can get more than what you normally get. And usually it's I think a seller's market anyway at the deadline. Yeah. I think it's even more so. So you start there. I think the Atlanta if they're really looking at it closely, they have 4 starters on the injury list. They got to sell. They don't have a lot to sell because a lot of controllable pieces and some of those contracts that they have, you'd be selling low. So, we'll see. It might be limited. They may have some relievers they may move. We talked about the Orioles. We have to wait and see. But right now, they're trending. They're 9 games under 500, and they're 7.5 out. If they in 3 weeks, if they're still 9 or 10 games under 500, I expect that they would be sellers. They have a lot of interest in their players. Cleveland is the team most recently that's gone on this tailspin that they would have some guys for sure to potentially move. Now it's limited to in that part. I think the final team and the one that everybody is keeping an eye on is the Diamondbacks. They're the ones that have a really good team. Nobody wants to play them when they're healthy, completely healthy. It's a really good team when they're healthy, but they're constantly injured. They just had another injury to their bullpen last night in Shelby Miller. So it's like they have a number of starters that have been injured. They've had Marte and Corbin Carroll, although Carroll's back. So they're the team, I think, the biggest wild card because they could move 2 really good starters. They can move a bullpen piece. They can move a power hitting third baseman and Suarez. They have a lot of talent that they can move really fast.
Yeah, this is why it's a fascinating conversation, right? Because you're sitting there going like, man, like this makes sense. Well, we're on it. We've been struggling. And I heard Arizona, they came out and said earlier, hey, we're looking to be aggressive. Right. Problem is, like this was earlier before all of like the full injuries, but they were still down Corbin and Eduardo Rodriguez. And they also play in the National League West where the Dodgers are humming. The Padres are pretty good. The Giants, I know, have been a little bit up and down, but they're a really good team. Like you're fighting to be the 4th best in the National League West, and seeing how the NL Central now is this strong division all of a sudden with every team, even the Pirates are playing better baseball down the stretch here. It's going to be a more challenging road for them to make the wild card, but they definitely have some pieces to go after. Or they have some pieces to sell and for teams to go after. Then Jim, like who would be a couple players then, if it's not just a team that you're really just curious about, like the one that people want to know is like, what the hell are the Marlins going to do with Sandy down there in Miami, that they are starting to turn a corner maybe, and they want to look the next year. He has one of the most friendly team deals of any starter that has ace potential. But is there a list of guys that you're really eyeing as we get closer? Yeah, go ahead. Let me hear him.
Yeah, I think Sandy's the first one. They also have another really good starter who's pitched very well lately in Edward Cabrera. That has been available, a couple years ago. You could have gotten him when he was, I think in his first year, and he had some injuries, but he's pitching, as he's pitching so well. So those 2 guys in particular, Arizona with Zach Gallen, who's going to be a free agent, and Merrill Kelly, who's also going to be a free agent. Those 2 starters would be, you could get a lot for out there. So I'm curious on that front. I think, I mentioned Suarez at third base. Like there's about 5 teams that could use a third baseman. The Cubs, Seattle, Houston, just off the top of my head, the Mets, they could use a third baseman. I think the Rangers are kind of interesting to take a look at. Somebody might have interest in Marcus Semien, even though there's a little bit of money on that contract. If the Rangers pick some of that up, he's been swinging the bat really well. That's a big name that is getting older in his mid to late 30s. So I'm kind of curious where that one goes. Somebody had asked me today about Ronald Acuna Jr. They saw his name mentioned somewhere. I had not seen it mentioned. That one felt like it was a made up kind of clickbait. Don't fall for the headline type of deal, because he's still one of the best players, and he's under one of the best contracts. I can't see that Braves doing that. So those are some of the ones. I would say Emmanuel Clase with the Guardians. He's one of the best closers. His name gets mentioned a lot. Has over the last winter, even last year's deadline, his name got mentioned. Who else? Anybody else that? Those are main names. I'm just double checking to make sure I got a little list that I have.
Yeah, you're not hearing Felix Bautista, right? You're not hearing Felix Bautista, are you?
I am not hearing Felix Bautista. We can talk about that for a second because, there are a lot of people that have suggested that they should, and I'm not sitting here today and saying, well, if they got blown away with a deal that they couldn't and wouldn't do it. I mean, I think you'd have to give serious consideration to it. But he's one of the best closers in the sport, and he's still really, in terms of the salary, extremely low, controllable for a couple more years. And as
Yeah.
soon as you trade him, you got to replace him next year. And that cost is going to be 60, 70, 80 million dollars, something along those lines. So why would you do that if you're the Orioles? If you're trying to manage your payroll properly, you need to pump it into starting pitching, next year and some extra bullpen guys. Why pump it into a closer? You have one of the best out there. So I would not move him, and I have not heard his name at all.
Well, good, because I'm right there with you where I know no one is truly off limits. There's no deal that you wouldn't, it couldn't be out there that couldn't persuade you. Now, I'd argue there are some players like, I ain't trading Gunnar Henderson for anything. I'm not trading Jackson Holiday for anything. Heck, I mean, I know he's a prospect. I wouldn't trade Sam Basayo for anything because he's very close. And he's going to make his debut here, whether it's later in this year or in the future. But you're looking at a guy that bat-wise, gosh, it is scary good what he's showing his potential to be at the plate. But then one thing we hadn't talked about, like the Pirates, like where do you look at them? I know Brian Reynolds, no trade clause, right, and has the choice to do what he wants to do. Do you think the Pirates move any of their arms? Because they do need some more offense, but they do have some really, really good pitchers that even if they've underperformed a little bit, right? Like Mitch Keller's a guy that's underperformed, but very talented. Sure. Falter, another guy. Paul Skeens ain't going anywhere. That's as we say, too ludicrous, Jim. But do you think the Pirates get in this mix at all with some of these arms?
I do, Ryan. I think that Keller's a really good name. His name has been mentioned recently. He's a really solid starter. So is Bailey Falter. Andrew Heaney is a guy that's been traded a couple times at the deadline. He's a depth piece, a veteran guy, lefty. I think all of those three starters are in play. I think their bullpen, they have David Bednar. They have the kid Dennis Santana at the back end. Those two guys are, so going back to our story earlier, their owner, the Pirates owner, would not have let their current GM Ben Cherington trade David Bednar last year. He's a local guy. He's from Pittsburgh, and they had him under contract. Like he was a fan favorite. He didn't let him trade him. So apparently he's going to allow that. We'll see, but he'll let him do that this year. And so I think those are a couple of guys that I've heard their names. You mentioned Reynolds. He's another guy. Hayes, because teams need a third baseman. He just hasn't clicked offensively. He's a good defender, and there's some money on that contract. So I don't think he's going to be available. But yeah, I think they are going to move a couple of those for some offensive pieces. It seems like.
Yeah. Well, I guess time will tell with all of this. And this is the part. This is why everyone loves the trade deadline, because everyone wants to make trades, Jim, back in March and April and even early May, where every team, even when they're struggling, right, you're trying to figure out your roster and teams aren't going to be willing to budge. And you really don't want to sell a guy off unless like you feel like you really want to be aggressive. Like typically, right, Jim, we don't see a lot of early season trades. We really don't. But this is everyone that likes to speculate, and then it gets a little bit hotter. And then, soon enough, some people might be wrong, Jim. Some might be right. Or hell, we might have another story or two like you've had over the years where that comes out in the future because the deal that never happened. And this is why I love it. Jim, you are one of my favorite to have on, and I'm going to, next time I'll have another ludicrous song to have you involved with it. I mean, that's what we're rocking with.
You can't be introed any better. You can't be introed any better than that.
Hey, so for everyone that's looking for all the work you're doing, you said earlier when we started, you're going to be busy for the All-Star draft weekend. You're working home run derby, all this. Where can everyone listen to you and follow you moving forward?
Sure. No, I appreciate that. So Sirius XM, if you got the app or you have it in your car, Sirius channel 89. It's the MLB Network radio channel, and this weekend it's going to be mostly in the late afternoon, 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock before the Derby and before the game. The draft I think starts at 6 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday. And then my show is, Sunday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So, yeah, I appreciate you letting me promote that and listen in. And sometimes I'm on 105.7 and obviously sometimes with you too.
Perfect. I mean, hell, you're staying busy. And for those people, hey, you want to listen to some good baseball talk there and you're in your car, or you can be on your phone nowadays. Hell, technology's better. Go listen to Jim. You might learn a thing or two. I mean, hell, I have over the years, Jim. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Right. Nice
and
to see you again.
I will bother you soon. All
Anytime,
right?
buddy. I'll talk to you later, buddy.
See you, Jim. Jim Duquette, everybody. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure with Jim Duquette. And if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Ryan Ripken Show. We do this live every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right here on YouTube, X, and Facebook. Hey, how you doing? This is what happens when Rip rides solo in here. We're just hanging. We're bopping around. Couldn't figure out the frickin' tech. And I know Brad's going to message me later and be like, it really every time that happens with you, but we got it up and running and we've had a great show so far, and we are going to wrap up a little bit earlier than usual because we got a couple things I got to take care of, but we have a big week ahead. But a couple things I wanted to touch on, and don't you forget that I can't forget to make my trip up to our friends up at Hollywood Casino Charlestown Races in West Virginia. I'm looking around thinking that someone's going to say it with me. Ollie, West Virginia. Nope, he's sleeping. But our friends up at Hollywood Casino Charlestown Races, hell, we were up there just about 10 days ago. We're up there with Ryan Zimmerman and chatted with him. Joey, I've seen him in the chat. Uncle Andy Billy was up there too. So we had people that are fans of the Ryan Ripken Show, of the Ryan Ripken community. They joined the show. We had a fantastic time up there. Thin Line Services, a dog service that helps veterans and first responders that have been disabled. We had Holly join us, who, maybe that's a reflection of the owner for the training, but that golden retriever is so well trained, so adorable. And all the dogs, the golden retrievers, they're all golden retrievers, are named after those who have lost their lives as first responders or as veterans in the military. So really cool. And we love our friends up there. And, Zach Bollinger, he's not here to have his Bolly's bets for today. So he can't lose. He can't win. That's probably the best thing for him. But if you guys are looking to get a win or loss or something in between, as you guys know, over or under 2 seconds, one Mississippi. It's right there. New player bonus by ESPN Bet. You bet 10, you get 100 in bonus bets. And you get 30 days of ESPN Plus on them. Just download the ESPN Bet app, but you must be 21 years or older to bet. If you got a gambling problem, as always, call 1-800-GAMBLER or our friend Rocco DeSangro. And when I move, you move, just like that. Appreciate each and every one of you. I got to wrap up here in a few minutes, but a couple things I wanted to touch on. Why don't we go back a little bit and give some round of applause to our former Baltimore Oriole. And now he's going to have more years and time spent with a different franchise, but that is Manny Machado. Manny reached a milestone just the other night, got over 2,000 hits for his career. And the question's kind of being raised now, does Manny have a shot to get to 3,000 hits? And you know what? He might. He really, really might. And if you look at this of active players in the big leagues, Freddie Freeman, just under 2,400 hits. Altuve, 2,300. McCutchen, Goldschmidt, and then there's Manny. But if you're going by age, Manny has a very good shot. But let's make something clear. Manny Machado is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he's going to have the chance to push for 500 home runs and 3,000 hits and join an even more illustrious club. And I know a lot of people want to feel certain ways about Manny Machado. being such a young player coming to the bigs and people feeling like there was a certain attitude or a persona to him. He was young. And what's been really cool is you've seen a young adult grow up, and he was growing up in the big leagues. Like, think about that. We get to make mistakes and go through all of our bullshit and all this on, when we're, college, early years out of college, and not everyone's noticing. Manny Machado is under a spotlight from the moment he jumped into the big leagues. And even during his time as a prospect coming up through the Oriole system. Congratulations to Manny. Well-deserved. He truly is one of the best in the game, and you'll see him at the All-Star game coming up here down in Atlanta. And final note, because actually on this day in history, I wanted to bring that up real quickly. This day in history, in 1997, there was an iconic moment at the All-Star game. Iconic moment where Larry Walker batted around and faced Randy Johnson right-handed. Now, the cool thing with this whole situation, if I can find the clip, come on, Ryan, is that Randy talked about what actually happened there, the behind-the-scenes story of the whole thing. So let me see if I can find that clip for you guys. Should be in here somewhere. Come on, Ryan. You can do better. Am I really not going to find this thing of the clip? Come now. Really? It's not in there? I am losing my mind, guys. I'm losing my I didn't lose my mind. I just found it. Here was Larry Walker talking about that All-Star game, which is now 28 years ago. So let's play that clip for you guys. All-Star game. I think everyone's looking at that, and you turned your helmet around and went up there. There was way more to that story than people might know.
I know Randy threw behind Kruk's head, and everybody got a good laugh out of that, and that was quite a few years before. I don't know if that was staged. Yeah, Randy and I did talk about it in the outfield before the game. We were out there chit-chatting, and I said, "Hey, you want to relive the Kruk moment?" And he said, "Yeah." And so it's hard to react to a pitch that is coming and where it's going to react. So I tried to react as shockingly as I could. And it turned out Randy was actually pissed off at me because I ended up walking that at bat, but he was pissed off at me because he said, "I thought the deal was you were supposed to hit right-handed the rest of the at bat." I'm like, "I've never hit right-handed in my life, and you want me to step in there right-handed at an All-Star game against you throwing 100? Okay, that's not going to happen."
Oh, no. It happened, though. Not fully, just for a pitch. But Larry Walker, it's fun to look back at those memories. One of the most iconic All-Star game moments. We got a couple more iconic All-Star game and home run derby moments to talk about as we move further into the week. We had Ken Griffey Jr. talk about that one that maybe happened here in Baltimore back in 1993, something that still hasn't happened at Camden Yards since. And today was the day. Last thing, Backyard Baseball 2001 was just relaunched. Calvin Edwin's on the front. We're going to have a longer time for me to break down what truly it means for these old video games because they don't make them like they used to. I know MLB The Show, people like it. It's not even in my top 5. Now, it might not even be in my top 10. But I'll tell you what is, Backyard Baseball 2001 is definitely on the top there in that top realm, I should say. And I did play that game religiously from coast to coast, especially in that year of 2001 traveling. I annoyed the hell out of everyone because I played it that much. That was the game I wanted to play. But the real thing is, Calvin kind of stinks in that game. But we'll dive into that a whole lot more. And I got a couple people that can help me break down that iconic 2001 game in a future time. Guys, appreciate you. And I know it's a little bit shorter of a show today, and I couldn't get things together to start it off, but if you guys can hit that like and subscribe button, it would mean a lot. If you join the channel and become a Rips Good Kid or a Holy Shirts and Pants member, it helps us out tremendously here at the Ryan Ripken Show as we continue to try to scale up. And for my Holy Shirts and Pants members, we're going to have a little chat And we're going to sit down and shoot the shit and have a little talk about whatever the hell you guys want to hear about. We got more guests planned for tomorrow. And that's all I have to say about that. Well, guys, I can't cue the music because it's not connected right. But as you guys know, do, boom, boom. Do, bump, 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 bump. As always, here at the Ryan Ripken Show, have a day, have a night, have a great stinking rest of your Tuesday, and come back and see us again tomorrow because we're going to have a brand new show with more guests, more content, and a whole lot that you're not going to want to miss. Be good, everybody. Be good.